Hey, Julian, before you start,
Yes.
um, your volume seems to be down for me. Kathy and Izzy were fine, but when you speak, you're a little low. I don't know,
How do I sound now?
little better. Yeah, that's good.
Check.
He's probably got no voice left from the polls.
Yeah. Is that any better?
Yes, yes, it is.
Okay. Maybe my wires are connected. But well, welcome everybody. We'll get started. And I'll start with Director Ed Blades, General Obligation Bond. Bill 6822.
Expect to go first, but thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon, members of the council. The administration is requesting your approval of the annual bond ordinance that authorizes the issuance, sale, and delivery of many things, including up to $320 million in short-term bond anticipation notes or BANs, which include $70 million for consolidated public improvements in the CPI in the capital budget, and $250 million for the Metropolitan District Fund to finance water and sewer projects. It also includes issuing up to $320 million in the associated issuance of long-term general obligation bonds and $3,220,984,000 in refunding callable bonds issued by the county between years 2009 and 2022. The $70 million bond issuance for the CPI includes $25 million for school projects, $25 million for public works, $5 million for the community college, $5 million for agricultural land preservation, and $10 million for waterway improvements. The Office of Budget and Finance will be selling the bonds at a competitive bid, except for $5 million in agricultural preservation bonds that may be designated for agricultural property owners according to the installment purchase agreement program, and any bonds designated as finance from the Maryland Water Quality Finance Administration. By issuing the bonds through the MWQFA, the county is able to obtain lower borrowing costs. In preparation of the bond ordinance, we did have our contractor, our Consultant Public Resource Advisory Group, also known as PRAG, update our annual debt capacity and control analysis. PRAG reports that we are within all legal limits, and PRAG also reviews our compliance with debt affordability guidelines established by the Spending Affordability Committee, and we are within those guidelines as well. Just a special note to wrap up, the $70 million for the CPI in the capital budget is the lowest issuance in the last 5 years, significantly lower than the beginning of the term when we were issuing $200 million. So this year will be $70 million, and the final dollar amount will be determined in March when we actually go out to bond sale. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Councilman Quirk.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just very briefly, Ed, it's good to know that, PRAG looked at all this and looked at how it affected our overall debt. And you mentioned, which I was happy to hear and thought I might hear, but the overall borrowing cost, you said there'll be overall lower borrowing cost when we, pretty significant changing of how we structure our debt. Do you know what amount of, I mean, I know it's just estimating, but you know how much we're estimating our borrowing costs will decrease with this gigantic move?
Our forecast is to stay within our debt guidelines. I don't have those specific numbers in front of you, but I'm more than happy to forward them to you if you like.
Yeah, I'd be more curious on like some of these rates that we're refinancing and what rates we're sending back out. More curiosity, but it's especially now the rates have moved a little bit. But
sure, and our goal has been to reduce our ratios, of course, and we have been making progress in doing so based on having a large fund balance. Thankful to the COVID relief that we received in the ARPA funding, which helped us expand our available fund balance. So we are trying to reduce our issuances. Last year, the council authorized us 100 million toward the CPI, and we ended up only issuing 20 million. So while we're asking the council to approve 70 million cap, my goal personally is to issue 0, but it's too soon to make that call. Again, we're still trying to push down our debt ratios. So in the future, when we do have to increase our issuances, when we get into really heavy school construction with the high schools, there are going to be some larger issuances coming down the road. And we want to kind of minimize our growth now while we can.
Great, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councilman Quirk. And Councilman Batoka?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Blades, right now we're in the early voting period for the general election. And I was wondering if you could take a moment. I think I know the answer to this, but anybody viewing, if you could take a moment to explain, voters are going and they're seeing bond issues on the ballot, how this relates to what they're seeing on the ballot.
Absolutely. We're talking about a multi-year process. So the bonds we're talking about today were approved by the voters in previous elections. So what's on the ballot right now is the referendum borrowing ordinances. These were approved by the council. Well, let me take a step further back. When the county executive submitted the budget request for the capital budget for FY23, it included an FY24 program for bonds in the budget. A bond ordinance or referendum ordinance was prepared for each one of those classes, being schools, community college, public works, operational buildings. And the council approved the borrowing referendum in each one, the borrowing ordinance. That language is now being voted on by the voters for approval. If it's approved, then as we developed the FY24 capital budget, those bonds will be distributed. They've already were preliminarily distributed in FY23's budget, but they'll be distributed in FY24 for the county executive submission to the county council, again, for approval.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. I just want, there's a lot going on right now, and I thought it'd be helpful to explain the relationship. So thank you.
Lots of moving pieces.
Yes.
Bottom line, it's all on the citizens. They have to pay for it. So they have to sort of sign on.
We all have to pay for it.
That's my point.
Mr. Chairman?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Blades, you mentioned the rather large expenditures that are going to be coming in terms of high schools. What years are you anticipating that those are going to be hitting?
Those I have not really mapped out yet. It takes the high schools, it can take 7 years for a high school to be built, starting from design to full construction and occupation. So it will be based on cash flow. So we're really out knowing that, we have Towson, Delaney, East Side. I mean, there's a lot coming down the pipe, but I have not personally mapped out timelines.
I got you. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes. Who was that?
Crandall.
Okay. Go ahead, Randall, and then we'll go to you, Councilman Katz.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Councilman Batoka, I thought that the question was, your question was appropriate. I've heard from voters and that they question the same thing. What are these ordinances? Even though they're on there every election year, this is not out of the ordinary. And my answer to them, maybe it's not as detailed as Mr. Blades' answer, but my answer is this is how the county conducts business. This is how we pay for things. And usually these ordinances are approved because I think most people do understand it, but I do think the question was timely because people are going to the polls now and of course on Tuesday. So just wanted to make that comment. And then and Ed, if you could allay any sort of fears that we might have. I read in the fiscal notes that if Metropolitan District funding is not enough to have us pay our debt service, then that we may institute a tax. And I think we all know that, but could you alleviate that risk? That we're not at risk for not being able to fund Metropolitan District, are we?
No, I think we're in a good spot right now. Metropolitan is a self-funded entity, right? Everybody sees those charges on your tax bills for the Metro. So those revenues go into the Metro fund to help pay for the debt associated with keeping our water and sewer system healthy and functioning properly. In a worst case scenario, if we weren't meeting our required debt or our required operating costs, then it would require significant increases in rates. And I don't see that coming because we've really been working hand in hand with the city, and I think we've made significant progress in the billings because we are considered a customer of the city, but we've made significant progress in revenues that were lost in previous years. So I think we're really in a strong place with our Metro, even though it is a larger debt issuance, because, you know, on the CPI side of the capital budget, we have access to our fund balance to help us there. And when we put large general fund contributions into the capital budget, like last year we put $200 million in, that gives us more flexibility when it comes time for us to figure out how much debt we're going to issue. We don't have that flexibility on the Metro side. We don't take general funds and put it into Metro. That is a self-sustaining fund that everybody contributes to maintain. I would also note, back to the previous question on the CPI with the referendum amounts, on the Office of Budget and Finance website, there is a copy of the borrowing brochure, which is available for anybody who wishes to look at it, and gives you a little more detail on the distribution of those funds.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to
Very good,
comment.
Mr. Chair.
Councilman Katz, if you don't mind, let's let Ms. Rogers, I think we're going to talk about this issue.
Go right
Yes,
ahead.
sir.
Yeah.
Yes, I just also wanted to say to Councilmember Crandall, as Director Blades indicated, we have indeed been working very closely looking at our own rate structure and whether our rates are appropriate to cover the cost of service. And I'm pleased that 2 years ago, the county moved to a best practice to have our rates reviewed by a national independent entity, Reptelis, our independent reviewer, which the vast majority of large jurisdictions like ours has an independent review. The city has a review, other benchmark jurisdictions have a review. And I'm very pleased with the level of granularity that we have been able to obtain and analyze very closely to ensure that our cost and our share of managing the Metro public utility are in alignment. I'm very pleased with the work we've been able to do. Prior to that, the county did not have a independent third party validator in terms of our rates.
Thank you, Madam CAO. Appreciate that.
Councilman Katz?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. But my questions have been answered. They were in line with Councilman Crandall's questions. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilman Quirk?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple other quick follow-up questions. Director Blades, obviously we all know interest rates have skyrocketed in the last 12 months. Even tomorrow, the Fed Reserve is going to increase interest rates, mostly Fed funds by 75 basis points, then maybe December by another 50 basis points, but we'll see. Has that affected any of the PRAG calculations as far as, these refunding, obviously bonds, replacing outstanding callable bonds with new bonds? Has the borrowing costs obviously are still in our favor, even though rates have pretty much gone exponential?
Well, right now we're looking at our cash flow, and we're looking at getting the council's authority for caps really on a maximum amount to borrow up to. And as we get closer to issuance, we will be looking very closely and working with PRAG at what the costs are associated with that debt issuance, what the interest rates are, And we'll be making decisions then on, what is in the best interest for the county to issue.
Okay, and do we have any, like, interest rate sensitivity, like analysis on this or anything? And do you have any, has Prague, put out any type of sensitivity analysis on rate changes?
I do not have anything just yet, but we will be asking for it.
Thank you, Director Blades.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments? Okay, Director Blades, I guess we'll stick with you while we have you. We'll move along to page 27. And you can talk about the contract with the Manufacturers and Traders Trust Company. I never knew that.
Well, it's M&T Bank. So
I never knew that. I never knew that that's what it was. Learn something new every day.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. The administration is requesting your approval for an amendment to the contract with M&T Bank. As we transition to the new Workday system, we have been working with a contractor in assisting us with the development of our payroll system. And through that company, we are fine tuning ways or developing other ways to transmit, in particular to remit Maryland employment taxes. So this payment methodology requires the county to add reverse wire services to the existing contract, and the proposed amendment commences upon council approval. It does not change the term or existing maximum compensation under the contract, and our estimated annual expenditures with this change is $1,820.
Not much. Any questions or comments from the members? Thank you, Director Blades.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Now we'll move along to page 11. Leonard Howard. Bill 70-22.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. The administration is requesting a supplemental appropriation of federal funds totaling $4.296 million to the American Rescue Plan, ARPA, Workforce Gifts and Grants Fund program. In July 2021, Baltimore County was awarded an ARPA grant from the state of Maryland in the amount of $4.8 million. This second ARPA grant will continue the work of the first grant, creating career pathways into the manufacturing, transportation, distribution, and logistics sectors throughout the county. We'll also be working on career pathway work that will address the needs of the county's healthcare providers and other in-demand occupations such as welders and fabricators. In each case, the law requires a special emphasis on those residents who were previously unemployed or underemployed, as well as those facing barriers to employment and training. A key feature of this particular award is that it is to be accessed once the first award has been expended.
Okay, any questions or comments from the members? Thank you very much for your work, Director Howard. Now we'll move on to page
Mr. Chair.
16. Oh, wait a minute. Oh,
I'm sorry. We do have one speaker for this bill, 7120. I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. Excuse me. I thought we were on 71. My apologies, Mr. Chair.
it's okay. We have a speaker for the next one, though. The Tom Flag, we'll go to page 16, Bill 71-22.
Good afternoon, council members and Mr. Chair, thank you. Administration is requesting a supplemental appropriation of federal funds totaling $214,741 to the 5311 ARPA operating rural supplemental grant for countywide fund. These funds pay for the countywide operations they come from Maryland Transit Administration. Countywide provides on-demand handicap accessible transportation services to the residents of Baltimore County who are 60 years of age or older, and adults with disabilities, and also rural residents of all ages who have limited access to public, private, or commercial transportation. These rides provided by Countywide are predominantly, but not necessarily for medical visits. These funds will be used to improve technology and communications of the program and hopes to increase ridership within County Ride. These funds are going to be used for studies to improve connectivity of existing transit services, as well as studying micro transit services versus on-demand style transit services, and upgrading to different training and safety materials for the program.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from the member? I do believe we have a speaker.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Nora Miller Smith. You're on as a panelist. You may begin your testimony.
Yes. Hello. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the council for allowing me to speak today. My name is Nora Miller Smith. I'd like to speak on behalf of Bill 7122, which allocates funds to County Ride to improve its technology and communication services. While it's important for everyone to have reliable, accessible, and affordable transportation, it's particularly critical for the elderly, disabled, and rural residents that County Ride serves. So while this bill will provide some improvements, it's vitally important that other aspects of County Ride continue to be improved as well. At present, it operates 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, and customers are limited to only 2 rides per week. In the Baltimore County Transit Development Plan dated December 2021, customers were surveyed to find out their opinion of County Ride services. 85% of respondents said they use County Ride for medical trips, and if County Ride wasn't available, including when their scheduled ride was canceled, a third of them said they wouldn't be able to make the needed trip at all. In terms of improvements, people said expanding hours to evenings and weekends were most important, but also important guarantees of rides once they were reserved, and increased capacity so that the 2 rides per week limit could be increased. 95% of riders were over 60, 42% were over 80. 50 used some kind of assist device for mobility, and less than 40% had a smartphone. 50% no valid driver's license, 72% had no access to a working vehicle. So that's the population that County Ride serves. The elderly, those with limited mobility, those who can't drive, those perhaps without a smartphone or a computer, those who live far from services, some of our most vulnerable residents. The Transit Development Plan notes that to the customers who need these trips, they are critical. Again, County Ride customers don't have a lot of options. The need for reliable transportation for these vulnerable residents cannot be overstated. As a nurse, I know what happens when people miss medical appointments or dialysis sessions because they can't get to them. Maybe their scheduled ride got canceled at the last minute through County Ride, or their friend or family member's plans changed and the promised ride fell through. While missing a medical appointment might mean you might not get treated for a cough before it turns into pneumonia, missing dialysis sessions puts you at risk for hospitalizations or even death. And by the way, dialysis is 3 times a week, not 2 times. And sessions are held Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, as well as Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So I'm pleased that funds have been made available to improve County Ride's communication services, but I hope that the 2021 transit developments, short and medium-term plans will be implemented to expand services past 5 p.m. on weekdays and eventually to Saturdays. Also to increase the number of rides customers can book per week from 2 to 3, and to work to increase capacity and avoid canceled rides that might leave customers stranded far from home and exhausted after treatments. The transit plan notes that already demand for services typically exceeds capacity. Nearly 30% of Baltimore County residents will be over age 60 by 2040. Dependable, accessible, affordable public transportation will only increase in importance for the health and well-being of Baltimore County residents. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak today.
Well, Ms. Smith, we really appreciate you taking the time to share that information with us. There's no doubt about it. county ride is extremely important. And I was listening to you and spout off the stats. And most seniors, I mean, listen, there's no doubt about it. The older you get, the more doctor appointments you get. And I'm just wondering, it's certainly time that we look at doing something about 2 a week. We have to really take a hard look at that, see how we can expand that. I think that's important. Any questions or comments from any of the members before we move on? Okay, thank you very much. And next we'll move on with Mr. Flagg. Let's see, page 19, Bill 72-22. Bikes and pegs.
Yes, good afternoon again. The administration is requesting a supplemental appropriation of federal funds totaling $225,000 to the Bikeways and Pedestrian Access Bulk Capital Project. These funds will be used for construction of 9 new raised crosswalks at different intersections on the Torrey C. Brown Trail in Baltimore County. These intersections include the intersections of Sparks Road, Corbett Road, Hicks Road, Hunters Mill Road, Greystone Road, Weisberg Road, Dairy Road, Walker Road, and Freeland Road. There is a matching contribution from the county of $25,000 in matching funds, and the initial term for this is for 1 year upon council approval through September 29th of 2023.
Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Katz.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I'm not trying to zap this or anything, but I'm wondering that since the Torrey Brown Trail is state-owned and run, why Baltimore County is paying for these raised crosswalks. I think they're needed. It has nothing to do with that. I know we're only talking about $25,000, but why are we going to have to contribute $25,000?
Sure, Mr. Councilman Katz. I believe these roads are county roads that they cross over, the trail crosses over. So that is why those roads that they are crossing over to the raised crosswalks will be in our actual county roads and owned by the county.
Yeah, I knew that, but again, I'm wondering, I would think in this situation that the county would simply give permission to the state to construct these crosswalks and that the state would be paying for it. But, I'm okay. I just don't, we, in Northern Baltimore County, we have a problem with the Gunpowder State Park, with the Gunpowder River and the swimming in it, et cetera, where sometimes the state does not do its part. And for instance, with the placement of the spotted pots and that kind of thing. So, we need to make sure that we hold the state accountable and that they put forward their share of the costs. So thank you very much. I see that our CEO, what is it, CAO? I'm sorry.
AC Spahn.
That's her hand up.
Mr. Chair, may I be acknowledged?
Yes, please, go ahead.
And I know that Councilman Katz, I certainly concur with your position, but that's one of the reasons why we are doing our part here. There are times when there are things that are needed, like road signs. We needed to put no parking signs on state roads, and the state will come back and say,
yeah,
we're willing to have the signs, but the county, you have to pay for that. So this is our effort of, exercise and due diligence, because this is a safety matter as well. And we need to do our part to ensure those raised crosswalks are there to protect our residents and visitors enjoying those trails, that we do our part of it. We have a lot of good working relationships with the state, but sometimes when it comes down to who's going to pay for what, the state will say, we don't have the resources to do that at this point. And we said, well, it's a priority for us, so we do it.
Yeah, they only have a $2 billion surplus. That's all, so I can see where they can't afford it. But I'm happy with the results of the last session because I know that more park rangers have positions that have been created. Hopefully, we'll be able to fill those positions. But the state really needs to do a lot to make our parks safer and also to protect the parks and the Gunpowder River from misuse, which is happening. And thank you very much. I just used it really to have a platform for wanting to hold the state a little more accountable. So thank you very much.
Okay. Any additional questions or comments?
Just one quick question, Mr. Chair. Oh.
Yes, Councilman Patoka.
This is actually for Stacy, Ms. Rogers. So if it's a priority for us, but this on a state road and the state doesn't believe it's a priority right now, is there the possibility of a reimbursement in the future? That's question one. And two, we just sat down with the state on the consolidated transportation plan. And does that fit into anything that we're talking about? Or is Ray's crosswalks too granular for that program?
Thank you for that question, Councilmember Patoka. We try the best we can to get everything that we can within the plan, but there are some things that come along, and I'll use, for example, the no parking signs on Route 1 in Councilmember Quirk's district. We pushed hard to get those signs, but everybody has their priorities. So we knew that we needed to get that done. And when the state said they could not, they said, sure, we'll give you permission, but we don't have the resources to do that. You know, I guess that's where the jurisdictional partnerships come in, what we feel is a priority, and we don't base it on whether we're getting reimbursed. We base it on what the needs are. So no, there were no reimbursement negotiations with these things. We just try to do what we know needs to be done for our jurisdiction. We ask, oh, believe me, we do ask. But if they come back and tell us that they can't, then we feel obligated to work on the projects, particularly things like the no parking, the truck parking issues that we know are problematic here. We got those signs up. We produced them. We got them put up and got that project completed after they gave us the approval to put the signs up, but said that they could not fund it. So sometimes we just have to do what we have to do and, you know, invest our resources on the priorities, particularly safety kinds of things that we feel are important.
Fair enough. That's taking care of business.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Councilman Marks.
I'm going to use every opportunity I can while we're talking about bicycle improvements to again push for the Northeast Trail to be finished. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Councilman Marks. Any additional questions or comments? Nope. Fantastic. We'll move on to page 24. James Benjamin, now County Attorney.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the council. The administration is requesting approval of an agreement with the Cello Levitt LLC to provide legal services with respect to the county's opioid litigation initiative. The Cello Levitt LLC would investigate, evaluate, and potentially represent the county with respect to litigation concerning the marketing of opioids. Opioid addiction has presented and continues to present significant health risks to cities and counties across the United States. Many municipalities in Maryland and across the U.S. have initiated lawsuits to hold companies that engaged in widespread abusive marketing sales practices of opiates accountable. As such, Baltimore County is considering potential legal options in light of the severe damage that opioid addiction has caused within its borders. The contract would commence upon council approval and continue through completion of any litigation unless it was terminated. This agreement has no fiscal impact to the county unless a favorable judgment will be rendered on behalf of the county. The Cello 11 LLC would advance all fees, costs, and expenses necessary to prosecute any case. Costs and expenses would be paid only out of any recovery that is judgment or a settlement. The Cello 11 LLC would only charge a fee if the county would successfully resolve any claims it would file. Any legal fees would be limited to 25% of any pretrial settlement net of costs and expenses, or 33% of any recovery net of costs and expenses should a matter be filed and go to trial. And I would note that these fees are comparable to fees the Cello 11 LLC charges to other non-state entities. Thank you.
Any questions or comments from the members? What is the life of this contract?
It would commence. It would go forward through the commencement of the or the case. It would, as long as the case lasted or the matter lasted, that there would be no time limit at this point.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Now I guess we'll move on to page 31, Mr. Terry Hickey.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the council. I'm here on behalf of the administration requesting approval of a contract with Robert Half, which is a staffing agency, to provide temporary support to our grants management division to assist with compliance and oversight of COVID-related grants while we work to fill 3 vacant permanent full-time positions. Due to the importance of proper compliance and reporting, our staff vacancies, and the size and complexity of the grants, and in an effort not to burn out our existing staff, we contracted staffing firms already with agreements with the county. They were unable to provide employees for these specialized positions. Fortunately, Robert Half had developed an expertise in this area during the pandemic. They have personnel available, ready to move and send over to us. And so DHCD would like to move in this direction while those folks are available. The contract, if approved by council, would begin November 7th. It would continue through the end of February. The total amount of contract is not to exceed $137,600. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Any comment from the members?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, go right ahead, Councilman.
Thank you. Off the subject of this particular fiscal matter, I just wanted to thank Terry for visiting our district office, and we had a lively discussion, and I think a meaningful discussion, and I really feel like his department is in good hands with him and his leadership, and just wanted to again thank him for the time and for answering our questions and letting us know what he has planned for the future. It was a good time had by all.
Thank you, Councilman.
Sure.
Great. Yes, Ms. Rogers? You're muted, Ms. Rogers.
Thank you, Chairman Jones. I just wanted to emphasize this effort because compliance with all of our federal funds in Mr. Hickey's area is so critical. And we, across the nation, people are having problems with staffing. So we just can't miss a beat. That's why we felt this was the most strategic direction to make sure that while we're trying to staff up, that we don't get behind on our compliance requirements. So we do thank you in advance for your kind consideration of this contract, because it's a critical need that we have given the staffing shortages that we have.
Okay. Fantastic. Any additional questions or comments? Okay, thank you, Mr. Hickey. We'll move on to Ms. Laura Rowley, page 34.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. The administration's requesting approval of an amendment to a contract with the Islamic Society of Baltimore for providing site-prepared meals for individuals at least 60 years of age or older, disabled persons under 60, or accompanied by a participant. The proposed amendment leaves maximum compensation unchanged at $75,000 for the entire 5-year term, including renewal periods, but retroactively increases annual compensation by $10,000, with the practical effect being a $10,000 increase in the maximum compensation of the final year of the contract. In essence, this is a retroactive amendment to a since expired contract in order to correct an oversight that the contract was overspent during the transition of our accounting systems. In an effort of transparency and the desire to pay the vendor, it was felt the best approach was to come back for a council vote. A favorable vote will allow us to pay the Islamic Society who provided these meals in good faith.
Any questions or comments from the member?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Councilman Token.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Riley, I just want to acknowledge the good work that the Islamic Society of Baltimore does. I was just there this past Friday for Friday prayer, and the community not only helps the Muslim members of Baltimore County, but also our broader residents. And so they do a great job. They're committed to the community. They're an anchor in that part of town. And so I think it's a great institution to partner with. And thank you for identifying our faith-based partners out there who can help our broader community.
Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments? All right, thank you very much, Ms. Rowley. Now we move on to Mr. Lawrence Richardson.
Good afternoon,
Page 37.
Good afternoon, Chairman Jones, members of the County Council. The administration is requesting to enter into a contract with Jimmy's 2 LLC for transportation services, doing business as Jimmy's Cab. Baltimore County Department of Health and Human Services uses taxi cab services to provide transportation to eligible Baltimore County clients for medical and other social services appointments. Due to a lack of a comprehensive and coordinated transportation service, it is very detrimental to our clients' health and their well-being if these services are not provided. Taxi cab services are provided to increase adherence to medical appointments, visits with case managers, and other supportive services. This contract was a 1-year contract with 4 1-year renewals.
Okay, now, good to know taxi cabs are still around. Any questions or comments from the members? Okay, Mr. Richardson, I guess we'll move right along to page 41. Another amendment for a contract?
Yes, this is the administration. We're seeking an amendment to an existing contract with Laboratory Corporation of America. This amendment is required for the continuation of general laboratory services for clients attending our Baltimore County Health Department clinics. LabCorp of America provides general laboratory services and COVID testing. The increase in contract uses has been due to the high demand for COVID-19 testing. These services include pickup, transportation, processing of the specimen, medical interpretation of results, and notification and follow-up with the clients. This amendment is for $300,000, which would be increasing the total not to exceed for this contract to $600,000 for the entire term of the agreement period. And it's expected to estimate to serve around 5,000 clients annually. Be happy to take any questions.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, moving right along. Mr. Steve Lafferty, page 44.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. The administration is requesting approval of a contract with the Nelson Ideation Group LLC to lead the efforts to create a equity-focused, sustainable community development organization on Liberty Road in the central node, centered largely around the intersection of Old Court and Liberty Road. This is an organization. The intent is to establish an organization that will be able to address a range of community needs, issues, and development and redevelopment opportunities. This contract was competitively bid. and the Nelson Ideation Group is a WBE MBE. The estimated service will be for 12 months, and compensation will not exceed $208,000. The efforts by this consultant will help us not only create with extensive stakeholder participation a new organization, but also to help us structure the organization for its future engagement, not only in the community, but as a partner for the county. This will include developing a 3-year business plan, helping to hire an executive director, and providing the necessary training and outreach required to stabilize a new organization. We request your approval.
Thank you, Director Lafferty. And I gotta tell you, certainly that's my area. And I'm very appreciative of the county executive's engagement in the community. Like I mentioned earlier, we made an announcement for a supermarket that's coming to the lower part of another part of Liberty Road. And this section certainly deserves some attention. And I think the efforts of the community development organization will be it'll pay dividends for the community as well as the businesses on Liberty Road. Any additional questions or comments from the members? Okay, we'll move right along to page 47. Mr. Lafferty?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. The administration is requesting approval to acquire a perpetual conservation easement on approximately 45.68 acres of land in the amount of $312,942 pursuant to the county's agricultural land preservation program. This property is owned by Henry and Michelle Mays, and it's located on Old Hanover Road in the Reisterstown area. This land is located within the Upper Co, Worthington, and Sparks Agricultural Priority Preservation Area, and it will allow us to significantly preserve not only the values of the natural and agricultural resources, but also the characteristics unique to this property. The calculated value of approximately $7,162 per acre is in accordance with the formula that is applied pursuant to county statute. The property owners have offered a discount to $6,850 per acre. Such an offer by a property owner is not unusual. This often enables them to be prioritized at a higher level when offers are made. If you have specific questions about this acquisition, I have Benjamin with me as well today, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Director Lafferty. Any questions or comments? This is, I'm sure you know this area well. Councilman Katz, this is part of my new area that I acquired from you.
Yeah, I hope you take your lead from me.
Absolutely.
Only get you to make your own decisions, but it's been my honor to really represent that area for many years as a state legislator and county councilman, and it is a beautiful area. And so I don't know if this particular properties in my new district or not. You know, our district, your new district sort of cuts through that area, but yeah, it is certainly a step in the right direction toward our goal of 80,000 acres to be preserved in Baltimore County. And I know we're at about 70 now, or pretty close to 70,000. So, you know, so much credit needs to go to the county and the state for these efforts. And thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Katz. Now, I guess, Mr. Lafferty, we'll move on to page 50 for conservation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the council.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. All right. You're breaking it. You're getting in and out. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry about that, Mr. Chairman. The administration requests approval to acquire perpetual conservation easement on approximately 68.93 acres of land in the amount of $376,380 pursuant to the county's agricultural land preservation program. RMP LLC is the current owner of the property, which is located on Resch Mill Road in Hampstead. The property is zoned RC2, excuse me, and RC8. The property is to be acquired, is located in the Freeland and Maryland Line Agricultural Priority Preservation Area, which I presume will remain in Councilman Catch's district. This zoning would allow, the RC8 part of the zoning will not allow any subdivision. The RC2 zoning would allow a maximum of 2 lots. The calculated value is $5,460 per acre in accordance with the formula set forth in the county code. And believe the council is aware of the various conditions and factors that are taken into account in developing this formula. With that, we request approval.
Thank you very much, Director Lafferty. Are there any additional questions or comments? No? Fantastic. I guess we will move on to page 55 with Whit Tancliffe and Mr. Christopher Hartley.
Hi, good evening. I'm Whit Cantliff, Budget Director of BCPS, and also on is Chris Hartlove, our Chief Financial Officer. Tonight, we're presenting a supplemental appropriation for approval, which is being requested to provide enhanced compensation for each of the BCPS bargaining units and non-represented employees. The fund balance from the Baltimore County Public Schools General Fund and Food Service Fund is being used as a source for this funding. This additional funding should boost retention and provide strong support towards recruiting external candidates to BCPS. In addition to the already budgeted January 1st 3% COLA, this supplement will provide a 3% cost of living adjustment or equivalent retroactive to July 1st, 2022, covering the period July 1st through 12/31/2022. Also, an additional step or equivalent will be given to each bargaining unit retroactive to July 1st, 22 for all staff hired prior to July 1st, 2022, with the exception of Tabco, where all employees will get the additional step. Mr. Hartlove and I will now be glad to take any questions. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Councilman Catch.
Thank you very much. I have a few questions. I'm not sure that you are the individuals that can answer these questions, but we've had a number of witnesses speak before the county council about the effects on current faculty of teachers quitting after a week or two or leaving the system. I think that these increases will have a very minimal effect on retaining teachers. Speaking with teachers, what needs to happen is our teachers need to be supported in their role as educators. And they're not supported when they have extra duties put on them at the last minute. We have the problem with the discipline we talked about on the buses, in the classroom. And I see where I think I have a copy of a statement, I think we all do, from the Board of Education or from the superintendent, which somewhat addresses the issue of discipline. We desperately need to have our teachers supported. We desperately need to have a good working relationship between the administration, the teachers, the parents, the community, etc. I know that the schools, for the most part, in my district are good, and they're good because of the very strong relationships that exist between the community, our schools, our parents, etc. What I'm asking is, since I really don't believe that the salary hike is going to have the effect of retaining teachers to a large degree. I just don't think that's going to happen at all. What I'm interested, and I don't have a problem with the this item of the budget, none at all. But I just want to know what is being done to support our teachers.
Well, thank you for the question, first of all. And I think we agree that this, the salary by itself is not, is not the answer. We believe it's part of the answer. It's a part of the answer of being respectful of our staff and valuing our staff. I think the other things you point out are certainly, I think valid points that we take seriously here. We're always trying to make the school system the best place we can make it, and all the things that you're talking about, the accountability, the having the open door, the voice, the ability to listen to what teachers say and to develop that relationship. I know those are things that Dr. Williams feels very strongly about, and the administration feels very strongly about. So we certainly hear you, and I think we're working on those other things as well. And certainly, if you have, you want to go further with this, I'm probably not the best person to answer the question, as you said earlier. Certainly, you when you're in your one-on-one with your one-on-ones with Dr. Williams, or at the November 15th meeting with the council, certainly those are things that you can discuss with Dr. Williams directly.
Do you would you happen to know about the mentoring program in Baltimore County for our new teachers? I mean, does it still exist? Okay, because I was concerned because I know that there's a teacher shortage, and I'm like, my neighbor is he was a mentor teacher, and now he's an administrator in one of our elementary schools. So I was wondering, because of the teacher shortage, whether or not these people had been put back in the classroom full time. Do you know what the situation is there?
I can tell you this, I'm not, again, it's a little bit out of my area, but I can tell you that, what you're saying is something we've been trying to look at every avenue to try to make sure we have quality teachers in classrooms. One of the things that just happened last week actually was in the evening here at central office. We had an open house for these young folks that you're referring to try to get them to come to work for us. But we're utilizing them now in the classroom, but also when they get their degree, we want them to be Baltimore County Public Schools teachers. So we're definitely working that angle of trying to take these folks that we have good experiences with and try to get them into the classroom permanently for us.
I know that in my discussions with some teachers, one of the issues in the past was that when it came to evaluation time, some of the issues that the new teachers had in the classroom were basically appearing on their evaluations as negatives, despite the fact that the issues had been cleared up, that the new teacher had resolved the problems, and they felt as if they were hesitant with talking with their mentor teacher. I'm not talking about every situation. I'm just talking about some situations, because after all, we need to do everything we can, especially if we're going to keep these new teachers, to support them. I know that there'll be some that really aren't suited for teaching, and that's a whole different matter. I'm not saying to not be vigilant in weeding out those who aren't going to make it as teachers, but we all know the stresses that teachers are under. I mean, especially today in today's world. I see our policemen. I've been shown video of the public yelling at police, screaming, cursing. And I understand that the same thing occurs in our schools. And that is something that when I taught, it didn't happen. It just did not happen. And I don't know when things turned around and it started, but this is something that has got to stop. Must stop. And, as far as I'm concerned, if a student is violent toward a teacher or a staff member, in other words, hitting somebody, I think the consequences need to be severe. And I think maybe the school system needs to look into, because I don't think students like that should remain in a school or on a school bus. And maybe we need to expand our alternative schools so that because we don't want students roaming the streets. I mean, we don't want that. We don't want them expelled or whatever, roaming the streets of Baltimore County, because that does them no good, does us no good. So I would hope that the county would look into the need for schools that will help these students that don't seem to be able to thrive, and in fact, they endanger our schools. So thank you very much.
And I would just say in response, I think, it's certainly something we talk about regularly. And you are 100% correct. Attracting new teachers is only part of the battle, the challenge. The other part is retaining the good teachers that you have. You don't want it to be a revolving door where people come in and go out. With regards to safety, we take it very seriously. It's a high priority. We've invested resources there. We know we're not done, but we feel like we're making some progress. We're trying to continue. It continues to be a high priority. It's certainly a topic that I'll bring back to the superintendent. And it's same as I said earlier on, certainly in the meeting on the 15th, I'm sure this will be an item that you can discuss, and the superintendent will be, definitely open to having that discussion.
Well, I saw that the instances of violence have gone down by 11% this year. It was a report. I don't know who sent it. Was the super? I don't remember who sent it, but I hope that our goal is that our number of instances is going to be reduced by 100% in the near future, because and that should be a realistic goal. It should be and needs to be. So thank you. I appreciate your answers very much.
Thank you, Councilman Katz. Councilman Quirk.
Thank you, Chairman Jones. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with Councilman Katz, and making sure we do all we can to crack down on the behavior issues. Good people really suffer when we have one or two bad apples. And so, yeah, alternative schools, expelling, whatever needs to be done. I hope we really go after that problem hard, because it scares a lot of people, and it's a great way for schools to go downhill quick. I guess just for the record, I just want you guys to just confirm one thing that was agreed on. Baltimore County Public Schools advised that the superintendent has committed to reducing fiscal year 2024 expenditures by 16 million, which together with anticipated increases in state funding will cover the cost of the additional step moving forward. I just wanted to make sure that's still the directive, that's still all on plan, and just want to check in to make sure that that's all looking as promised.
Yes, thank you for the question. Definitely, we actually just had our first budget meeting with the superintendent, and we were going to meet individually with chiefs throughout the organization. But we started the process off with an overview of where we stand. And one of the things that's on that list is the $16 million commitment to build the rate, this item, build this into our permanent budget next year.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Councilman.
thank you very much. I certainly agree with my colleagues about the discipline issues as someone who sees them every day, and they're complex. There are many factors that are involved, some of which are certainly socioeconomic, but also this movement nationally toward what's called progressive discipline, which tends to de-emphasize tough penalties like many of us experienced when we were in school. It's complex. I certainly would appreciate the school system doing whatever it can from its end to remove violent offenders and to be more proactive. I want to first compliment the school system. This summer, the county council took a very strong stance in terms of the school bus transportation issues, and I don't get as many I don't get the type of complaints I used to months ago. I don't know what my colleagues are receiving, but it really seems that the school bus transportation issue has drastically improved, and I do want to give some compliments to the school system for working on that. With regards to teacher retention and attraction, I hear from teachers that there's still lingering problems with payroll and benefits, that the ransomware attack is still being blamed for these. And that is certainly not good. So I would encourage the school system to please, again, focus on improving those really fundamental issues of payroll and benefits and making sure that our educators are getting the responsiveness they deserve. Thank you.
I appreciate that comment. And I've had conversations with the superintendent, and where that same comment comes up when we talk about the cyber attack. And he said that's absolutely unacceptable. It's not it's not an acceptable excuse. We're really trying to improve those areas that you discussed. So and not make any kind of excuses for why things may not be working the way we want them to work.
Right. But I do think the school bus issue deserves some applause, because I don't get the complaints that I used to. I know a really tough issue, and it seems to have gotten a lot better. My colleagues can correct me, but I don't get the type of complaints I was getting in May and June.
I know Dr. Yarborough has worked on the front lines there, rolling up her sleeves, and she's been trying to it really does come down to understanding the concerns and going out and trying to address them. I mean, all these issues have solutions. You just have to work it. And I think that's what she's been doing is working the problem. And that's what all these things are. We have to work the problems.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Mark. I do have one question for you, Mr. Hartlove or Tentlef. You were describing the pay increases, and the last thing you said, you gave some dates when it would be effective for certain people, but then you said everyone in TABCO would get it. Can you explain those dates and why there's
Mr. Tantliff can go through the specific dates. He can repeat those again. But remember, these are all negotiated agreements. So when we went forward, there were some of those types of details were negotiated. We through the negotiations, they came up with slightly different results in when the timing of when folks were covered. So I don't know, Mr. Tantliff, if you want to repeat the dates that Councilman Jones is referring to.
I believe the date he may be referring to is that Tabco employees hired at any date will get the additional step, whereas the other units that are getting additional steps are for employees that were hired as of June 30th.
So the employees that were hired, you say as of June 30th?
Basically, yeah, if they were hired as of last June 30th, they'll get an additional step. With the exception of Tabco, their agreement has all employees receiving the additional step, even if they were newly hired employees.
Okay, so that's why that I'm clear. As of June 30th, these other employees would get it. If they were hired after that, they wouldn't get it, or before that, they wouldn't get it. Which way does it fall?
Okay, it's different. Every bargaining unit ended up with a somewhat different agreement, but for Tabco employees, our largest union, all employees, so employees who had been on payroll June 30th all received a July 1st step if they were eligible for it. That's already happened. As part of this enhanced compensation package, all employees, no matter when they're hired, will get an additional step retroactive to July 1st or their hire date.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Any additional questions or comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just a quick question. When you talk about steps, I know that teachers automatically get increases, you know, year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. What about year 16? What are they not getting a step? Because I know there was a 3-year gap between was it 3 years, or is it 3-year gap between, like, I'm just making it like between 15 and 18 years, or 18 and 21. Is that still the way it is?
We have a 30-step scale, and so for the 30 years, the teachers get the step each year. There's no multi-year gap.
Oh, no more. It's year after year after year now. Okay.
Until they reach the top step, then they don't advance any longer.
But the increase applies for the 30th year as well.
Well, the COLA does, but if you're on the top step, you can't advance another step, though it's not part of the supplement, but with the ESSER money, we are providing one-time bonuses of $2,500 to the employees on the top step.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any additional questions or comments?
Chairman Jones?
Yes.
Just super briefly, I did want to state publicly too, I couldn't agree with Councilman Marks more on the buses. I mean, last year, all I did was get slaughtered and killed by upset parents and complaints nonstop. And knock on wood, I don't want to jinx this, but knock on wood, it's maybe a billion times better now than what it was just even a few months ago. So whatever you guys are doing, keep doing it. And thanks for the efforts there for sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're more than welcome, and I'll just echo yours and Councilman Marks's comments. Clearly, the bus situation has dramatically, and it's to the work of the folks in the school system who, like you said, Dr. Yarborough, who rolled up the sleeves and really jumped in there and took a lot of recommendations to heart and implemented them, and now we're seeing the fruits of that labor. So, are there any additional questions or comments so we can move forward? And next, we'll move on to Councilman Crandall, page 53.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Resolution 4222, which is a PUD entitled Homes at Rosedale. This is this resolution would approve the review by various agencies in our county to look at a project for 72 apartment units for seniors 62 years of age and older. The site is a site I think probably well known to Councilwoman Bevins, which is off of in between Philadelphia Road and Pulaski Highway at the former St. Clement's School. St. Clement's has been closed by the Archdiocese for a number of years, so the building is standing vacant. I think that this will be a good use of the property, provide some needed senior living options for those in the area. It will replace a vacant building, which I think is a good thing. So did want to say that Homes for America, the developer of this project, in my opinion, went sort of above and beyond what was necessary from a community input standpoint. They started this process really right in the middle of COVID restrictions and had to conduct meetings online, and still did not let the COVID restrictions hamper their enthusiasm for the project or to give them excuse for not engaging the community. They on numerous occasions, they've engaged the community above and beyond what they are called for to do within the statute, the PUD statute. So I appreciate that. We do have a letter of support from the Rosedale Community Association. I think the project was well received in the community for the same reasons that I've already expressed. I do believe that the representing attorney is going to speak on this matter for us. But I'd like my colleagues on the council to take a look at the resolution, and I would appreciate my colleagues' support on it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Councilman Crandall. Any questions or comments from the members? I know we have a speaker, Mr. Castro.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have Patricia Malone. Ms. Malone, you're on. You may begin your testimony.
Good afternoon, Chairman Jones and the members of the council. Councilman Crandall, thank you for that very thorough introduction of Resolution 4222. I will tailor my comments and just add a few things to it. As you said, the proposal is to renovate one of the existing buildings, the school building that fronts on Chesaco Avenue. They're going to renovate that building and essentially add on to that to do the 72 senior units. These will be affordable, age restricted, 62 and up. They will be a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom units. Homes for America has retained Horde Copeland and Mocht to design this project, so it will be a quality project. They will have indoor and outdoor amenities, spaces for the residents. They'll provide sufficient parking. As Homes for America explained to the community, they will have a property manager on site, and they will also have a resident services plan to provide activities and programming for its residents. Obviously, this is a PUD. The underlying zoning of DR 5.5 would not permit this proposal without using this process. So we're asking for support of this resolution. As you indicated, Homes for America has met with members of the community several times, in fact. And during the community meeting that we have for the PUD, the one thing that I noticed was the most serious concerns that were raised by the community were about existing conditions on certain portions of the property. And those conditions certainly would be addressed with development and proper maintenance and care of the property, which I don't think is being done right now. You've heard me say this on other projects, how we desperately need senior housing in Baltimore County, and particularly those with less financial resources. Not many of our projects have been that at this point in time. So this project would help fulfill some of that need. So I would ask for the council's support of this resolution, and I'm here to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you very much, Ms. Malone. Are there any questions, comments from the members?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Go right ahead, Councilman DePope.
So for Councilman Crandall, I did read in the briefing that there's a community benefit, and I thought you might want to share that.
Thank you, Councilman. Yes, there is a community benefit. As you all know, we, as the council, when we do a PUD, we are legally able to extract a community benefit from the developer. In this case, it's not an exorbitant amount of money. It's $15,000, which is, you could look at it as relatively small compared to some of the other PUDs that we've looked at through the years. However, we also have to consider that Homes for America is a not-for-profit developer, and 72 units is a fairly small development. So the $15,000, it was raised in the community meetings, and the community was able to have input on how the money would be used. And one of the things that was identified, and something that I've tried to get done through the years, and looks like we're finally able to get to do it, which is to illuminate the American flag at the Rosedale Park. And I don't believe that will cost $15,000, but we can look at using some of that money for other improvements in the area, and maybe keep it centric to Rosedale Park. But it will be at our discretion as to ultimately how those funds will be used. But thanks for the question, Councilman.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments from the members? Okay, moving right along to last but certainly not least, page 22, Bill 73-22, Councilman Patch.
Thank
Posted.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I also want to congratulate Councilman Crandall for creating a place for his wife and him to move in a few years when they're 62. So congratulations to you.
Well, Councilman Katz, it's my understanding you already have an application in.
No, I'm not
You
old.
were rejected. That's right. You
I'm
were
not
rejected.
old. I'm not old enough.
Right.
Not old. So,
Thank
I'm
you,
sorry.
Councilman, for that backhanded compliment.
Oh, you're welcome. I think nothing of it.
I won't.
Good. The bill that's in front of you is one that I'm pretty excited about because if you remember some time ago, we talked about our landfill in Baltimore County and how the date for the landfill being totally filled was fast approaching us. Now, the bill you have in front of you concerning composting, composting stations is one that will help a little bit to alleviate the problems with our landfills. What is going on today in Baltimore County in regard to composting materials? There is a company called Compost Crew that sends trucks from Montgomery County to Baltimore County to collect composting materials, whether it be from private homes or from restaurants, etc. And these trucks then have to turn around and go back to Prince George's County, where the composting materials are then deposited at a composting facility in that county. Now, I'm thinking of it and I'm thinking, my gosh, that really doesn't make any sense whatsoever because, and actually they collect from 650 locations in Baltimore County. And I'm thinking, my gosh, all this, all this truck traffic between Montgomery and Baltimore County and Baltimore County to Prince George's, and I don't know for sure, but I think they go then from Prince George's back to their home in Montgomery County. So what is going on is a farmer in Baltimore County wanted to have a composting facility in our county and was told that he could not get permission to build the compost facility because our county law does not allow for such a thing. So he was turned down. So, which is a little confusing to me because composting is regulated on the state level by MDE. But nevertheless, the farmer was refused and not allowed to build a composting facility. So what this legislation does is it allows the composting facilities to be located in Baltimore County. So you can see the plus with hopefully a situation where more people will have their composting waste collected because you're not talking about driving from Montgomery to Baltimore County to Prince George's County. So you have the potential, first of all, of having more composting materials collected and dealt with in a more environmentally friendly way. So that's what this particular bill does. It was written, I'm not going to go into how it works because it was written in one way, and then I met with Compost Crew who had suggestions which I totally agree with, which widen the bill, make the bill less restrictive. Then the administration said that they had problems with the new bill. And I just got a call from them right before these hearings started that they think they were wrong and that the amended bill is actually the way that we need to go. Because in this situation, state law preempts local law as far as monitoring these composting facilities. If you take a look at state law, it's very detailed. And so what hopefully, and I'm sure it's going to happen this week, I'll meet with the administration and I'm sure that we'll come to some conclusion so that we can get this underway as soon as possible. And hopefully with this bill passing, there'll be other farmers who would want to be able to build a composting facility. Mr. Chairman, I mean, I'm willing to go over the details of the bill, but since it's probably going to change, and by the way, it only allows composting in RC zones, not RC5, because RC5 is the zone that is basically for rural housing. And you don't want a compost pile next to your home, I wouldn't think. We're talking about 5,000 square feet or 40,000, up to 40,000 square feet. Now remember, 5,000 square feet is about an eighth of a acre. So that would be the smallest, probably the smallest facility, and 40,000 square feet is almost an acre. Just to give you some perspective of the sizes we're talking about. So RC5 is not in it. RC4 is not in it because RC4 is basically, again, for housing. It includes every other RC zone because this composting, the ability to have a composting facility, it depends on whether or not you have an agricultural, a farm, and that's the only time that you can really, under state law, have a composting facility, is if the land is used for agriculture. So with the draft, the original draft, the only thing that I am adding is RC7 and RC8, which would only apply to the parts of that land that are used for agricultural purposes. It wouldn't be the whole RC7 zone property or RC8 zoned property, just the part that's used for agriculture. The issue is what should be by right and what should be by special exception. That's the issue. I personally think on the zones that I just talked about, it should be all by right, no matter what the size of the facility, because that is the state law. And I don't think that the state law does prevail over county law. In fact, MDE is the agency that monitors these composting facilities because they're looking out to make sure that the nuisances that could occur aren't occurring. And if you take a look at the fiscal note in the bill, you'll see the 6 or 8 situations that are not allowed. You know, you can't have a composting facility that draws a lot of rodents, et cetera. You can't have one where the odors are so prevalent that you know it's bothering neighbors, et cetera. So all those things are monitored by MDE. And so anyhow, this is going to be kind of a unique hearing in that I'm going to ask Adam Phillips to go over some of the details in relation to state law. And also there's 2 people from Compost Crew who are going to testify. I'm sure they're going to talk about how they support the bill, but the purpose of the testimony is mainly to explain how this bill is going to work in relation to state law. They're going to talk about the difference between Tier 1 and Tier 2 compost facilities, etc. So, Mr. Chairman, of course, I'll take any questions, but if not, we can go right to Mr. Phillips. And
I have a comment.
We'll start with Councilwoman Bevins.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councilman Catch, have you considered what I'd ask you to consider, or I can put an amendment in, perhaps for RC20, which is all waterfront, rural waterfront. I'm not so sure that composting would be thing to do on that type of property. So I'm going to give some thought to that and read a little bit. But I don't know if you had considered RC20 or not.
You don't need to, because RC20 and 50 are not part of the bill. So a composting facility would not be allowed on.
It
would not. No, it's RC2, 3, 6, 7, 8.
Okay, thank you for the clarity.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I forgot to bring that back up. Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions or comments? I guess we'll go right on to the speakers.
Well, are we gonna have Mr.
Oh, go ahead. You have somebody else?
Yeah, his name is Adam Phillips.
Mr. Phillips?
Got it.
Yeah, I just wanted to fill in a couple of the state law issues for you. So just to be absolutely clear, we're talking about compost facilities that are located on farms. So you might hear in, other counties or in our solid waste management plan, there's composting facilities that might be large on industrial zone land. This is not that. These are 2 separate things. So this is about on-farm compost facilities. And in general, we're talking about facilities that are limited to two basic types of material to make compost out of. One is yard waste, which we're all very familiar with, and the other is food scraps and compostable paper. So right now, the bill allows up to a 5,000 square foot area to on a farm to be used to compost food scraps and yard waste from outside of the farm. That would, 5,000, like Councilman Catch said, 5,000 square feet is not very big. That is the current limit in state regulations. Compost crew might come in and, when we hear from them, they might tell you that, they've been in talks with MDE about, whether that's the appropriate size going forward. But as of today, it's 5,000 square feet, and that's what our bill says. There's another section that has to do with waste created from farming that's created just by the one particular farm, and you're allowed to create a compost pile of up to 40,000 square feet of the compost from that farm. So you can't bring in material from outside. As Councilman Catch alluded to, there might be some amendments, so that section might actually change a little bit, open up, be a little bit broader, because currently, we don't want to accidentally, restrict what some farmers might be currently doing, current agricultural practices. So that should give you the general gist for what Compost Crew has to say.
And Adam, I just might want to add to what you said, that if you have a farm and a composting facility, if you own another farm, the compostable waste can be shipped to your composting on on the farm that has the composting facility. So that okay.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, state law does allow that for farmers that have multiple plots of land that are used as farms. They can, transfer material between them. Yes.
Same owner though, same person.
Same owner, yes.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Mr. Chairman, if we could go to the speakers, they'll fill us in on more information on this issue.
Fantastic. Ms. Belcastro, first speaker.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Yes, our first registered speaker is Christy Bloomer. Ms. Bloomer, you are now a panelist and you can begin your testimony.
Thank you, council members and Councilman Koch. Can you all hear me all right?
Fine.
Great. My name is Christy Bloomer and I am the Senior Director of Composting at Compost Crew. We are a local mission-driven food scrap diversion and composting business based in Maryland. I am testifying on behalf of Compost Crew for this on-farm composting bill number 7322. We support the bill with amendments. We are not in support of the original bill as currently drafted. On-farm composting is a necessary agricultural practice to manage organic waste environmentally and economically, while producing a high-quality soil amendment needed to sustain agricultural land. This is a farming practice used to improve soil fertility that dates back to about 2350 BC. It reduces the concern of nutrient runoff, the reliance of inorganic and toxic fertilizers, and manages concerns for nuisances and rodent control. Currently, on-farm composting is not regulated by Baltimore County. We want to help farmers implement on-farm composting programs to improve soil health and manage organic waste. We are grateful to Councilman Koch and his team for drafting an on-farm composting bill to try to address this issue. Baltimore County should define and allow composting as an accessory agricultural use to farming. However, we are concerned that the bill in its current form would actually make it much harder for farmers to compost and restrict organic waste management. The changes included in the amended version of the bill includes simplification of guidelines that follow the already existing and very restrictive state regulations. In addition to not restrict on-site generated organic waste composting practices and compost produced and used on farm. Farmers are currently composting in Baltimore County right now, and they abide by these state guidelines since there are no current on-farm composting regulations in the county. There have been no current issues or violations in regards to on-farm composting that we are aware of thus far, which already demonstrates the quality of on-farm composting in the county with no concern for nuisance or rodent control. Thus, based on the amended version of the bill, farmers will not need to adapt their current operations and the regulation will be very easy to implement. This amended bill will secure the future of on-farm composting in Baltimore County while promoting a closed-loop system for community resilience, increased waste diversion strategies, and promoting sustainable agricultural practices. If you want me to get into any of the specifics, I'm more than welcome to respond, but wanted to make sure I covered all of those major details. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Councilman Katz.
Yeah,
Ms. Bloomer. You can just hold on, don't hang up. Go ahead. Councilman Katz.
Christie, are you the one that's going to go into tier 1 and tier 2?
Yes, I can go into that. I wanted to make
Yeah,
sure
okay.
I'm available for
It's
questions.
very simple. Go ahead.
Yes, so tier 1 and tier 2 are defined by state guidelines. Tier 1 includes yard waste, which may include hay, yard trimmings, grass clippings. It also includes animal bedding and manure. Tier 2 is mostly food scraps, so something that would be post-consumer use of organic waste. So the Maryland state guidelines restrict by tiers based on feedstock. So the largest category is on-site organic waste generation. So farmers that produce vegetables, they might have some vegetable waste. They also might have hay waste, things like that. All of that should be able to be composted on farm without any restriction. And all of that finished compost should be able to be used on farm and any farm owned by that same operation. That's the first category. The second category would be off-site feedstock. So the off-site feedstock of tier 1, which would include that yard waste, animal manure, and bedding, would be able to be brought onto a farm if it is now restricted to a 40,000 square foot area, which is, like Councilman Koch said, a little less than an acre. So for most farms, that's actually a very small amount of space, but it allows them to take more of that nitrogen-based material from off-site and be able to be managed on farm in a practical manner. And then the third category, the most restrictive, is adding tier 2 feedstock, which includes that food scraps from off-site. That is then restricted by a 5,000 square foot area. And like Councilman Koch said, it is less than an eighth of an acre. It's a very small amount of space allowed. So it's very restrictive, but that's the current regulation. And what we are proposing to keep within the county regulation to make it easy to implement and abide by.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Councilman Katz.
Yes. Have the members of the council been provided with the amended bill where the amendments are in red? Okay, Adam, will you, when this
We did
meeting-
not do that yet, Mr. Katz, just because we weren't sure what the status was. And as you just indicated, the administration, just earlier, supported those amendments. So we did not circulate anything yet.
Well, I didn't think so. I just think that the new amended bill with which the administration apparently does support would be worthwhile for the members of the council to see. So if you would distribute it when the meeting's over, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you.
Okay, Chaplain Katz, are we ready for our next speaker?
Yes.
Ms. Del Castro?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Our next speaker is Gaylord Clark. Mr. Clark, you are now on as a panelist. You may begin your testimony.
And you can turn your camera on if you like. Calling Mr. Clark.
Mr. Clark?
All right, Ms. Del Castro, we'll.
Let me try unmuting him.
Okay.
He might be a constituent of Councilman Patoka, which would explain a lot.
Mr. Clark, you're now unmuted. You can speak.
But there he is. Mr. Clark, you're muted, sir. Unmute yourself. We can see you, but we can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
He is unmuted.
Press your space bar and talk. Hold your space bar down and talk. Okay, that's not working. We still can't hear you, Mr. Clark. I'm assuming if you're holding your space bar down, it's an issue with the microphone not being connected. Well, we'll give you a chance to work on the microphone, make sure it's plugged in. And meanwhile, what we'll do is, you hold on, and Ms. Del Castro, why don't we go on to the next caller while we give Mr. Clark an opportunity to either call in or fix his microphone.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. I'll reach out to Mr. Clark and try to get the problem resolved. But leave him on as a panelist in the meantime. I'll call our next speaker, Jennifer Coons. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing her last name properly. Ms. Coons, you're on as a panelist and you may begin your testimony. I'm sorry if I pronounced your last name improperly.
You pronounced it the exact way everybody always pronounces it. Don't worry. My name's Jennifer Kunze. I'm the Maryland Program Coordinator with Clean Water Action. We are a national environmental group with our Maryland office here in Baltimore, and we're really enthusiastic about this legislation and similar legislation that we've seen take place in other counties across Maryland to promote on-farm composting. And this is a really important tool to manage municipal solid waste in a cost-effective way that also provides benefits for the climate and air and water quality. So this bill in its amended form, in the simpler form that I understand you'll be getting in the future but don't have in front of you, but the amended form is a really great step for the county to take. Allowing farmers to take in organic waste, meaning food scraps and other natural materials, taking those out of the ordinary waste stream and composting them on farm is one of the lowest hanging fruit, best and most cost-effective things that local governments can do to fight climate change. When they're incinerated or landfilled, these materials produce greenhouse gases, either carbon dioxide, methane, lots of different things that enter the atmosphere and cause global warming. But in contrast, when those materials are composted, it actually sequesters that carbon into the ground, keeping it from entering the atmosphere. This also has the benefit of keeping it out of the landfill. I know everybody here is aware that ESL is filling up, and extending its life is of the utmost importance. So allowing farmers to do that by processing food waste and other materials that from offsite that would otherwise be entering the landfill is a really great step for the county to take. And generating compost for farms is also good for water quality, because applying finished compost to the land improves the soil's capacity to store nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus in the soil, and improves the ability for that soil to absorb water. And research shows that compost has a higher absorption and storage capacity than other common agricultural soil amendments, helping to reduce erosion and stormwater runoff. And that's, of course, in addition to all of the direct benefits to farmers themselves, who I very much hope that Mr. Clark is going to be able to talk about in a moment. Those are all the general points, and getting into the specifics, I'll just briefly say I'm very excited to hear that the administration is supportive of the simpler amended version of the bill. In particular, I want to make sure that the council brings forward the importance of allowing farmers to bring in food scraps from off-site and not putting any unnecessary additive burdens on them doing that, because that's the best way for the county to itself see all of these benefits of getting materials out of ESL at the same time as supporting farmers in producing compost and soil amendment. So I will wrap it up there. Thank you so much, and I hope you'll support the amended bill.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Coonsey. You get that right?
Coonsey.
Coonsey. Thank you so much.
So close.
I do have a question, but I'm going to see Mr. Clark, you ready?
Wait a minute, Mr. Chair. I am going to put him on, I have him on the phone, so I'm going to put him on speaker and he's going to speak through my phone here. Go ahead, Mr. Clark.
Make it work here.
Now that's technology.
All right, thank you. Okay, well, thank you very much for taking the time. We certainly appreciate your interest. And I think the farmer in question, we have a farm, Carriage House Farms, here in Stevenson in the Green Spring Valley. I was approached by Christy some time ago because we ourselves have 3 compost bins, and one of my interests is in streamlining operation. While I'm sure I could learn quite a lot about compost over time and composting, it is a special skill set, and Christy has the expertise and the staff that can basically save me some time and effort. Compost is an extremely important thing for us. While we are a pasture-based livestock operation, we raise poultry and heritage hogs on the farm. We nevertheless have a use for compost, and as you might expect, we also generate now a certain amount of waste, not an excessive amount, because again, most of our operation is pasture-based. But for those younger animals and chickens, turkeys, and the like, we do generate wood chips, shavings, and so forth that are in the compost pile. And because we have pasture, because we have garden, compost as an end product is particularly useful for us. To be perfectly honest, I have yet to turn over the compost bins that I presently have, simply because I don't have as much equipment as I would like. Not that I need an excessive amount, but it's simply a matter of time and generation to get to the final product. Christy and her outfit provide that kind of expertise that, again, would allow me to streamline things. One of the things that most interested me about her particular operation was its small size. It fits our space, the space we have available, very well. And it provides, or has the potential at any rate, to provide us and the community with compost, the product, of course, of waste, food waste in particular, our own waste, well, putting something positive back into the community. And in light of the situation with the Eastern landfill, it occurred to me that it is also a scalable type of operation, given that there are, from what I've read, 750 active farms in Baltimore County. It has a multiplier effect if it does work well, and I have every expectation that it will, since I've been to their facility presently in use in Montgomery County. Clean, it's neat, it's compact, it's odorless, and it has all of the things that recommended to me as a fully operating farm in the middle of what is also, you might say, residential areas. We have neighbors, and we are interested in maintaining a good relationship with them, but at the same time being a place where they can come not only for food, but for, I guess you would say, a kind of an operation, or at least look at the kind of an operation that I think farm should be in general, that would have, kind of enhance the business and, promote them as something more than a nuisance to the community. I reckon that's the long and the short. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any, and if you'd like to come visit the farm and see the site, I would be more than happy to show you around the place and what we would like to do with it. So there we go. That's very much. Appreciate the time.
We thank you so much for your testimony. And I'm just curious, Mr. Clark, if you can tell me, I get all the reasons for doing it in terms of being good for the environment. Is there any benefit? Is there any financial benefit to doing this?
You could say that there is a financial benefit were I to sell the compost that we generate. It is something, because we are looking ourselves for multiple revenue streams, at the risk of sounding pathetic. Farming is a difficult business. There is a lot of overhead. It's a very interesting business. So, that being said, revenue streams, a variety of revenue streams appeal to us, but it is not something from which we would see maybe a primary source of revenue. At some point down the line, if we don't use it all ourselves, and if Compost Crew does not dedicate some of that back to their own customers, who are in turn giving the food waste, et cetera, to them for composting, then yes, I could see, bagging it, selling it, to homeowners for flower pots and things of that sort. But as it stands right now, my primary interest is for utilization on our own place. And I think it gives us, or highlights us as a farm operation in the community as an operation that is doing something not only positive for ourselves, but positive for the community as well.
Thank you. And how long does this take? From the time that you put this waste there, how long does it take to decompose?
The technical part of that I would leave to Christy, but we're probably from start to finish 4 months. It ends up doing a circuit of basically 6 20-foot containers, which are aerated, and that aeration accelerates with temperature the composting process. It also keeps the odor down. And then that compost goes from the containers into windrows, which are basically out in the open air for, I believe, a couple of months. And at that point, the process is complete.
So it can only it only happens in the summertime?
No. It would be a year-round deal. The power, there is power provided by solar panels on top of the containers that allow for fans to aerate the waste material as it is composting. And as I say, the final step, because there is an innate heat in the compost, as there is with any kind of decaying matter, at compost would continue to heat and decompose in the windrows as they're, like I say, lined up out of doors.
So it's an endothermic reaction, so it creates its own heat.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, thank you so much. Any additional questions or comments? Any, Councilwoman Bevin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just take a brief moment to make a comment. I have done April till November. I don't want to say farm because I'm afraid I'm going to get it wrong because they've had a few farmers, but they started this a few years ago. They have a huge compost bag there. Everyone who visits the market knows that they can bring their composting there. And they had, I want to say, tens of thousands of composting that did not go down a garbage disposal or go into the landfill from doing that. And it went right back to the farmer who was bringing produce.
Okay, we lost Councilwoman Bevins for a minute. And while we wait for Councilwoman Bevins to regain connection, I would ask you, Councilman Katz, anything else you'd like to add while we're waiting for Councilwoman Bevins? Any closing remarks?
I just want to say that I'm really optimistic that we'll be able to deal with the administration on this issue and end up with legislation that is very close to the amended bill that you'll get a little later on today. And I'm sorry that with the representative of Compost Crew usually has as her background a composting facility, so you could have seen it because I thought, well, you certainly can't. When I talked to her, I thought, well, you certainly can't be sitting in the middle of a compost facility, but it's just a picture of it, so you would have gotten an idea of what they're like. And so as I said, I'm very excited about this bill. And I think it's a win-win-win for everyone. I was going to ask Mr. Chairman, as you did, whether or not the fertilizer that was produced with the composting was sold, and knowing that the answer was yes. But so anyhow, I don't have anything else, but more than willing to answer any questions. And so hopefully Councilwoman Bevins is back online.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I had two questions. I think maybe best for Ms. Rogers again. So one question is, and I believe I know the answer to this, but I'm not 100% sure. And that is, how does this fit within the recommendations of our solid waste work group? And I believe it does fit exactly into recommendations of the solid waste work group. Okay, that was one question. And question two is, does our Office of Sustainability and Resilience Sustainability, will they weigh in on this as we try to be more environmentally, as we forge ahead with more environmentally friendly initiatives?
I want to make sure I understand the question you're posing, Councilmember Patoka. Weigh in on this legislation or weigh in on the overall work that we're doing around composting? Because you're right, it's very exciting for us to see composting options, because any waste that we can deter or keep from going into ESL is great. That's the purpose. But yes, our Chief Sustainability Officer Jen Aosa absolutely is in our discussions with our overall where we're going, not only with this, with our work with the water utility, lots of array of things, but on this particular area, yes. But do you mean this legislation?
Yeah, I guess the question I'm asking, and because it's not a new position, but it's been in place for a couple of years now.
Yes.
For Councilman Catch, he had asked that the administration view this favorably, and I was just wondering what the vetting, I just was kind of trying to understand the vetting process of the administration's view of this.
Well, we'll ensure that if she has not had the opportunity to review the legislation, especially with the amendments that came in, because that came from the department, came from the administration to you all. But DPWT, where the Solid Waste Bureau resides, I am sure is all over it, because we've been talking about changes and what strategies we can increase around composting, because that is a recommendation. Right. If you go back to the solid waste work group recommendations, absolutely ties in. So we're very interested, but we will make sure that all associated offices and teams have a thorough look.
I mean, I think this is headed in the right direction and the tip of the iceberg in terms of things that we need to do to be more, to lengthen the life of our ability to, with Eastern Sanitary Landfill and other methods of having a place to dispose our waste.
Correct, particularly food waste.
Yes,
that's an area that we have to consider, because when you look at what's in the trash, which we've taken an opportunity to look at our solid waste, the content of solid waste, there's significant food waste there. So it's looking at how we can move forward. It's very exciting to me, the composting aspect of it, but we just want to make sure that we're considering every aspect and there's no unintended consequences.
Gotcha. Yeah, I thought it was in the, I remember in terms of the solid waste work group, there was a whole educational component related to it on how to compost and to grow our composting efforts, similar to the way we did recycling. Councilman Catch, you may not believe this, but I'm old enough to remember when there were recycling coordinators trying to set up recycling in jurisdictions, and some people didn't believe that we would be able to separate our trash. And certainly as a society, we have been able to do that. And I think we'll move forward in other ways to be more sustainable.
Councilmember, I am advised that Jen Aosa did have an opportunity to weigh in.
Okay, thank you.
On the proposed legislation. I wasn't aware if she had or not, but I am advised by the team that she has.
Excellent, thank you.
You're quite welcome.
Well, certainly has some extensive testimony on the composting. Are there any additional questions or comments from anyone before we adjourn? Thank you, everyone, for your time and attention, and we certainly appreciate the callers for calling in and sharing their expertise and thoughts with us. And everyone, have a great evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good night.
Everyone.